It's the fourth straight season. All three Triangle teams are in the women's NCAA Tournament. Welcome into WRAL Triangle and 2. I am Mark Bergen. He is WRAL sports investigative reporter Brian Murphy. Murph, we're going to start with Duke. Duke with the highest seed among the three Triangle teams, and the Blue Devils earning a 3 seed in the Sacramento region. They'll take on Charleston on Friday.
Yeah, they're the ACC champions, probably the best team in the league, and led by Toby Fournier. You know, she was all defense. She was second in voting for Player of the Year. She's averaging 17.3 points, 8.2 rebounds, a post player who's really been dominant for Duke. And don't forget, Duke got off to a 3-6 start to this season, but Kara Lawson really got them turned around. They're now 24-8. So, 6 losses in their first 9 games, only 2 the rest of the way. One of those was to North Carolina in the regular season finale. But Duke's just been, a dominant ever since the first couple weeks of the season. And they've got they're home. They're also hosting the first 2 rounds. So I think, at least a Sweet 16 berth is something that Duke's obviously aiming for.
You mentioned Fournier right behind Hannah Hidalgo for ACC Player of the Year. I look at Fournier as well, 53.2% from the floor as well, so an efficient scorer as well, not just a volume scorer for the Blue Devils. You mentioned Lawson, first time she's won ACC Coach of the Year, and you mentioned off the slow start as well, Murph. I had to do a double take when I read that, but then also you look at some of the losses in there too, against some of the best competition when it comes to college basketball.
Yeah, and this team's really developed. I mean, behind Fournier, they've got, 4 more players averaging at least 9.7 points, so it's a balanced roster. They really guard you. I mean, Duke has a reputation for really guarding you, and this is like a great moment for Duke athletics, right? The football team won the ACC, the men's basketball team won the regular season and the tournament. Duke won the tournament, and so you're just like, they're aligned. Whatever they're doing at Duke in this new era is certainly working. And Kara Lawson, of course, is now the Olympic coach. So there's just a lot of positives for this Duke team. Can they break through? If they make it to the Sweet 16, they may be looking at LSU. Kim Mulkey's squad, always a tough out. They'd be looking at LSU in the Sweet 16, and then they're in UCLA's bracket, 31-1 UCLA. Another dominant team. That game would be in Sacramento. Probably favorite. You would imagine that UCLA would have many more fans. So it's a very tough region once Duke gets out of home.
Murph's looking at the path for the Blue Devils, and if Duke gets by Charleston on Friday, the Blue Devils would play again Sunday against the winner of Baylor, and then Baylor is playing the winners of the play-in game between 11 seeds Nebraska and Richmond. So that's the path for Duke.
Yeah, got a lot of brackets around here. So pardon me if I have to look at them, trying to keep them all straight between the men and the women.
I was going to say, I'm still trying to get all of my picks down, Murph. You mentioned Fournier. Any other players to watch before we move to the other two teams?
Yeah, I've always been impressed with Ashlyn Jackson. She made a lot of big shots for this team last year in the NCAA tournament, averaging 11.4 points. A good free throw shooter. She just feels like, 44 steals. She was a second team All ACC. It just feels like they have a lot of players. They've, someone who's Ariana Robertson was all freshman team, second in voting for sixth woman of the year. It just feels like they've got a lot of pieces, and Kara Lawson knows how to deploy them. But Fournier is really the important piece. She's she's their post player. They've got to keep her out of foul trouble. And if they do, then they have the complementary pieces around her.
All right, let's go to UNC. The Tar Heels earning the 4 seed in the Fort Worth region. They'll take on 13 seed Western Illinois. That game's also on Friday. Murph, Carolina won 12 of the last 13 regular season games, so kind of moving up and ascending at the right time of the season.
Yeah, and Courtney Banghart's team, 26-7 overall, but as you said, really strong finish to the season. They won. They beat NC State in the Play for K game. They beat Duke in the regular season as well. This is a really, really balanced team. I mean, 6 scorers averaging between 8.6 points and 11.3 points. They are not a team that has one superstar they're going to pound the ball to all day. It really is on a night-by-night basis who's feeling it that night, or who's hot, or who has the best matchup. And again, another team that gets to play at home for the first 2 rounds, although we don't necessarily need to get in the bracket right now, but a second round matchup with Maryland is a potentially tasty game in the round of 32.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point in terms of UNC hosting first and second round games this weekend at Chapel Hill. The same with Duke in Durham as well. So you get the home court advantage for the first 2 rounds of the tournament. But yeah, you're already looking ahead to the second round here, Murph, where if UNC gets by Western Illinois on Friday, they'd play again on Sunday against either Maryland or Murray State on Sunday in the second round.
Yeah, and that Maryland, Brenda Fries has had a good program at Maryland for a very long time. One player that she didn't get all conference honors, but I thought Lainey Grant was one of the more important players for Carolina this year. I mean, she's kind of their 3-point shooter. I mean, 153 attempts, shot 43% from 3. I mean, she's someone who can really fill it up on a team that doesn't have, isn't necessarily a great 3-point shooting team. They've got a couple people over 40%, but she's by far taking the most at the high volume that she is making it. Nyla Brooks also took the same amount of her, but only, she thought 37%. So they can hurt you from outside. They, again, do it by committee. Nyla Harris, Lainey Grant, India Navarre. They've just got a lot of players that they'll rotate in and out. They've rested players. I mean, Carolina is really big on metrics, sort of advanced metrics, not necessarily in the basketball sense, but physiologically. Like they test their players a lot and see and can determine whether or not they need rest. They're not jumping as high. They're not running as fast. They test all that stuff, and so they will rest players throughout the season. You look at some of their players haven't played every game in part to kind of rest them. Well, that rest period's over. It's the NCAA tournament. It's time to go. And looking at their bracket, I mean, they're in the UConn bracket. UConn 34-0, demolishing everyone in their path. And so they are on the top side of that bracket. So if they can get past this round at home and next round at home, they'll face a potential Sweet 16 game against UConn. Hard to see anyone beating UConn, but that's the path Carolina has.
UConn's a powerhouse for a reason. My player to watch for the Tar Heels was Nyla Harris, a little bit more than 11 points per game, 57.4% from the floor, Murph. So you were talking about that efficiency, some of the advanced metrics. It's not just how they're performing, but taking good shots too. I mean, it's as simple as saying that, but taking what the defense gives you and then being assertive with that too. I see that, and I see that efficiency in her game, and that's who I have to watch for North Carolina.
Well, she has 93 offensive rebounds, so she's doing work on the offensive glass, and those lead to easy putbacks, right? That can really inflate your shooting percentage. You're grabbing other people's misses 93 times this year. How many of those times you're putting it right back up? So she is, by far and away their top offensive rebounder, and she's going to be, she's their top rebounder overall. But that's a big part of her game.
Want to go to State?
Sure, let's go to State.
NC State not hosting the first 2 games, unlike the last 2 seasons, but the Wolfpack get a rematch. Wolfpack get a 7 seed. They will take on Tennessee in the Fort Worth region on Friday. The game's going to be in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And if the Wolfpack win, they'll play the winner of the 2 seed, Michigan and Holy Cross, on Sunday. But State's going to try to tap into some of that same mojo that it used to beat Tennessee earlier in the season. It was the season opening game all the way back in November in Greensboro, Murph.
So both the men and the women playing rematches in the first round. Obviously, the men are in the first 4. This is a superstar-driven team. We talked about Carolina having a lot of depth, a lot of equals. This team, Wes Moore's team, will play the same 5 players for much of the game. You can look at their minutes played, and their starting lineup and the number of minutes they play, the number of shots they take. Camille Pierre and Zoe Brooks are really the engine that drives this team. Both first-team All-ACC selections. Pierre is a transfer from Vanderbilt and has been, as advertised, averaging a double-double, 16.8 points, 12 rebounds. And then Zoe Brooks, 16.3 points. And then they've got Zam Jones, who's their kind of their 3-point shooter, 36% on 177 attempts. Those 3 really carry the offense, and they'll go as far as those 3 will take them. Pierre, a dominant post player, particularly on the offensive end. Can those guards, Jones and Brooks, get downhill against their opponents, cause foul trouble, and score the basketball? But they're going to go as far as those 3 kind of take them.
Yeah, I'm with you there. State's been kind of up and down this year, where it's like Notre Dame took care of them in the ACC tournament, winning by 18, and then just some of the ACC heavyweights in the losses in the regular season, Duke, UNC, Louisville, Notre Dame. So it's like, can they tap into what we saw 2 years ago when the Wolfpack went on a run to the Final Four?
Yeah, and they lost a lot of talent last year. That Final Four team was great, and a lot of those players came back. Now they're all gone. Now this is sort of a new crop of NC State team. And Wes Moore has been frustrated at times, just feeling like he hasn't gotten the most out of this group. And you can look at their overall record, 20-10, just not sort of on par with what they've been the last couple of years. But they're a number 7 seed, that first round game against Tennessee. And then, of all the 1s and 2s, you get Michigan. Not exactly a traditional power in the way that UCLA and UConn and South Carolina and Texas have been over the last few years. And so can you get a little of that magic? Can you get hot? Can, Zoe Brooks, Zam Jones are capable of going off, scoring a bunch of points in a row, scoring a bunch of points in a game. I think you're going to need somebody to sort of have an outburst. If you get past Tennessee, somebody to have that kind of outburst to help you get past Michigan.
Okay, Tennessee and Michigan. Who else is in their bracket, Murph, in terms of specifically the region that they're in, of what the Wolfpack's path would be to the Final Four?
Yeah, let's just assume the top seeds win. But they would have to get, if they can get past Tennessee and get past Michigan, they get to the Sweet 16. And Louisville, one of those teams you mentioned, is waiting for them. They're the 3 seed. You would have to play them. And then most likely Texas, the 1 seed, another dominant team. That would be your Elite 8 game to try to get to the Final Four. So, again, in women's basketball, the top seeds are just so dominant. The 1s and the 2s are so dominant that if you're a 3 or 4 on the men's side, you think, we can easily get to the Final Four from this position. On the women's side, those 1s and 2s are so good. It's going to take a lot of effort to get them upset. And maybe somebody does it for you. Maybe somebody can knock them off and you get a little easier path.
All right, quick prediction before we go, Murph. Of the 3 triangle teams, is there one that you consider most likely to get out of the opening weekend?
Yeah, I think I think Carolina and Duke will get out. I think Duke would be the favorite to get out of the opening weekend, only because Carolina as a 4 has a tough 5 in Maryland in that second round. I think Duke probably has the best chance to get to the Final Four. But again, not going to be easy. That's in Phoenix this year, the Final Four. I was looking for that real quick. If you do face UCLA, that's a tough ask.
Juggernaut.
Yeah. So all these teams are so, Lauren Betts for UCLA, they all have these superstars at this point in women's college basketball. And to get past one of them really requires, sort of a Herculean effort.
He is WRAL sports investigative reporter Brian Murphy. I am Mark Bergen. If you enjoyed watching this video here on the WRAL Triangle and 2 podcast, on YouTube, do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button, and on Apple and Spotify, please, 5 stars only for the review. Brian Murphy, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, and those games are in the Triangle, so if you're a big women's basketball fan, plenty of time for you to go watch Duke, watch North Carolina.
Enjoy the start of March Madness, everyone. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care, and so long, everybody.